All right, good evening, Protectors. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Greg LaBeouf here with you. Got Dustin Dodoy, Brad Vandalite with me. Once again, we're here tonight to share insights into the weaponization process. Our whole goal and mission is to help good men be able to protect themselves, their families, their property. I think this is obviously, needed more now than at any other point in history, or at least for a long while. And, just there's so many different things going on in the world right now. And it's just undeniable that although no one's got a crystal ball, it looks as though things are going to get worse before they get better, right? Mental health, drug addiction, broken justice system. There's so many different things that just keep pushing these repeat violent offenders back out onto the streets, into our neighborhoods, outside of our schools, our places of business. And this is our entire mission and purpose. And so, again, our goal tonight is to do nothing more than help share insights into the process that will make you infinitely safer, and that is the goal. So, listen, tonight I titled this episode The Color of Safety. There is a couple different ways that I want to approach this. We're going to talk about Colonel Cooper. There's a color-coded system that Colonel Cooper came up with many, many years ago that is used in lots of different areas, right? And it is really the definitive standard for the color of safety. And I just want to go through this. I want to break this all down. But I think what I want to do, because if you're familiar at all with the world of self-defense or personal protection, you would have heard about the Colonel Cooper's color code: white, yellow, orange, red, and black. And if you haven't, that's okay. I'm going to break it all down. But what I want to do is, even if you have, I want to kind of try to present this in a different light, give people a different perspective, a different way to take this knowledge and make it far more actionable, make it far more functionable immediately in your life, and show you how just understanding the colors of safety can have an instant impact on your ability to protect yourself, family, and property. So that is tonight's mission, the color of safety. So just hang with us. We're going to cut to our intro. We'll be back in a few seconds, and we're going to dive deep into this. All right, stick with us. Drug addiction and mental health issues, who is free to walk the streets in the same city where I live, work, and where I am raising my two daughters. Well, I'm tired of screaming at the TV, and enough is enough. Throughout history, there have always been men willing to answer the call to the threats against our way of life. Well, today, that threat is right outside our doors, on our streets, in our neighborhoods, on our public transportation system, outside the places we work, and even outside of our children's schools. My new mission is to create and train a group of men that believe in the right to life and value the freedom a man has to protect his life, his family, and his property. I'm Greg LaBeouf. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, we are back, and like I said, we're talking about the color of safety tonight. And so again, Colonel Cooper was a very famous trainer back in the day, a lot mostly connected to firearms training, and he came up with a color-coded system. And so this kind of has been used over the years. I've seen it modified slightly for different things, but generally speaking, he has really kind of but there's actually kind of 5 different color codes. And each of these represents a different aspect of let's say, a critical situation. But this is not just, these colors don't just define a physical aspect. They define a mentality, they define belief systems. They're very, very deep. And that's kind of what I want to do, is I want to introduce and unpack this for those that may not be aware of this, and hopefully give a different perspective of this for those that are aware of this. So let me just real quick go through and set up what the general color codes of safety are. It starts off with what they call a color white. We've also referred to these as condition white. So you might hear me refer to it as the color white or condition white, but they're interchangeable. So condition white, the general rule of this is unready and unaware, unprepared. Okay, so condition white, we often have a saying that this is where your average person, where they have no threat-based perception of the world. They wake up in the morning and their mind, their thoughts, their actions, their beliefs are consumed with just daily activities to the exclusion of any type of awareness as to any type of potential threats that may exist in this world. So obviously, if and when something happens, they live in this condition white. They are unready, unprepared, and that is the lowest level. So condition white is unaware and unprepared. The next step up from that is what they call condition yellow. And condition yellow is basically just a very relaxed but alert state. Okay, there is no specific threat, but condition yellow is when you have a threat-based perception of the world. So what does that mean? It just means that when you wake up, you are aware that, although again, like me, I believe that most people in this world are really good people, but there are those in this world that if you give them even half a chance, they will hurt you. They will destroy everything that you love. There are those people that exist, and if you just have that awareness of that, that is the first step to living your life in condition yellow. You have a threat-based perception of the world. But understand that having a threat-based perception of the world doesn't mean you live in paranoia. You are very, very relaxed. You just have an awareness that there are things and individuals in this world that can hurt you. Now, it goes a little bit deeper than that, but I'm just giving a very general overview right now, and then we're going to unpack it a little bit more. So condition white, unaware, unprepared. Condition yellow, you have a threat-based perception of the world. You are aware that there are those in this world that will hurt or destroy given half a chance. One step up from that is condition orange. Condition orange is what happens when you become alert to a more specific threat or a specific threat. Okay, so in condition yellow, there is no specific threat, but again, we have a threat-based perception of the world. And now all of a sudden we start to see, remember, even the possibility of a threat forming. So now that is becoming a specific threat. Whether it manifests and becomes a real legitimate threat or it doesn't. Remember, in the earliest signs, you don't know. Like it may or may not become a real threat. But condition yellow alerts you to the possibility of danger. Condition orange allows you to focus in on that. And now you start go to a higher degree of preparedness or readiness as you begin to zero in on the potential development of a specific threat. Okay, so that's condition orange. Condition red is now ready to act. Okay, condition red is often action or it is being ready to take decisive and immediate action. Okay, and then the last kind of color is what they call condition black. Now, condition black is a little bit separate. And this is why sometimes you'll just see the white, yellow, orange, and red. You'll see the four color codes. And condition black isn't always listed on there because condition black basically represents a catastrophic fail. So often those that exist in a condition white who are unaware, unprepared, they do not have a threat-based perception of the world. If and when something begins to happen, they are often surprised by it, startled by it, which kicks them into a condition black, which is where you basically panic, you overreact, you freeze. There's the shock of it all. You're caught off guard. All of those different things. Your physiology, basically everything cascades out of control, and you are left utterly defenseless. And that is what's called a condition black. So basically, a catastrophic fail of any and all innate or learned survival mechanisms. Okay, just everything collapses. So that is what's called a condition black. So, okay, so I just introduced the colors of safety as Colonel Cooper's kind of color code goes. And I'll just pause here to let Dustin and Brad maybe just give your first initial visceral thoughts on the color of safety.
For me, I think I really just, it goes along with a lot of things that we talk about, is an understanding, right? And it's when everybody thinks about weaponizing or defending themselves against violent criminal assault, they always go to the physical. And there's so much more outside of the physical that is going to be there to aid in your survival, right? And this is one of those things. And it takes a few experiences to hear this for it to start actually to make sense. It's actually quite quick. Now, you could go, like anything, you could go really deep with it. But again, this is another thing that is very applicable to learning how to weaponize against violent criminal assault. So, it's another piece, right? So that's just what I wanted to share. There's so many things outside of the physical elements that are definitely there to aid for your survival.
Okay, Dustin?
Yeah, two things. One, we have a saying that comes up probably almost every single time we train, and that's control follows awareness. And I think this kind of speaks to it. As Brad said, it's not just purely about physical. So much of this of weaponizing is mental. And so I think having a good understanding of these different color codes, the different color conditions, is sort of a really a really important piece of that awareness and learning to be able to control the physiology and everything that comes with, that you're going to go through in a violent encounter. You know what I mean? It's going to have a very massive physiological effect on your body when your sympathetic nervous system gets triggered. So I think understanding these is a big part of that. The other thing is, and you said this already, Greg, but it's probably worth repeating. I think people can't hear it enough. It's that, having things like, condition yellow, condition orange, that ability to walk through life, being prepared and being aware of, what can happen is not being paranoid. The same examples we give all the time outside of violence for people to have a more familiar reference point is, you take swimming lessons, you put your kids in swimming lessons, you do fire drills at school. Hopefully you do fire planning at home, with your spouse, with your kids. It doesn't make you paranoid. You don't come home every night or from work, you don't go to bed every night thinking, oh my God, I hope my house doesn't catch on fire tonight. Oh, that would suck. Like it's people would laugh at that. Well, violence isn't any different. Just because you're aware, prepared, understand it, does not mean you're paranoid that it's going to happen.
Yeah. Good points for both guys. I think, like I said, when I thought about making this the topic for tonight's podcast, the color safety for anyone that's even remotely connected to this industry has heard of the color code. And I think, and if you haven't, then you're getting your first introduction to it tonight. But I think what I'd like to do right away is try to shift the perspective and see it from a different angle. Because again, I think Brad, you said this: control always and can only ever follow awareness. And so what happens, I think, a lot of people is they just look at these things, white, yellow, orange, and red, and they just think, okay, so white, you're unready and unprepared, unaware. I say, so I'm aware. Like, I listen to the podcast, I read books on this, I've studied a martial art, so I'm not condition white. Automatically they go, that puts me into condition yellow. Now, I'll form this and I'll ask this as a question to you guys before I put my 2 cents in. But do you think that the simple fact that you train or that you in some way connect to self-defense, personal protection, firearms training, whatever it happens to be, that automatically negates you from ever being in condition white and automatically allows you to exist in condition yellow?
No way. I don't think it's that simple. I think you can easily fall into a condition white for sure.
Okay, so
especially with
think
life
that
factor
happens?
moments.
Okay, so how do you think that
And
happens?
life factor moments, yeah, life factor moments would be a big one. You get distracted by your everyday routine, or you get distracted by a simple task, and you kind of just the idea of a threat or something could fall off your radar.
Okay, all right, Brad, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think I agree with Dustin. I think a little bit. It's like, well, just because you're trained doesn't mean your filtering out the right things or is attached to the right stuff, right? So it's like, just like anything, this needs to have some self-discovery. This needs some education. This needs to be trained, right? So you can't just say it's like just because I trained, therefore I am. Not really. Doesn't really work that way. But like, again, my angle would be is like, well, yeah, you train, and yeah, good, that's great. People should train, but it's like, what's your filter set to, right? What are you training for? Because if I'm training combative sports, then my filter might be set just for like a fight. Do you know what I mean? Where violence may not really be on the radar for some people.
Okay, so you're referring to this as kind of like a filter setting. And so if I just put that a different way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? Is if you're training the combative sports, and so the problem you're trying to solve is, kind of competitive versus combative in nature. And of course it is combative, but the idea that you're getting in the ring and you're what you're looking for, the threats you're looking to identify is when the guy's going to fire the jab or shoot in for a double leg takedown or something like that. So you're creating this filter that will allow you to see things in the context of a competitive type of environment or a straight up type fight, those kinds of things, which again is its own version of a condition yellow. You're relaxed and alert and open to what you're sensing and feeling what's happening. Versus though, if you're trying to solve the problem of violence, the context of that entire situation is different, and therefore the content you need to be training is different, right? And so, and I think that's a really good point with this, is that you're creating and setting the reticular activator of your brain, which is the filter, to say, what is the information that I never want you to sensory gate, and all the other stuff can be sensory gated. And so I think that's a very accurate and a very powerful way to describe that. One of the angles, or one of the points that I'd want to put in this, is that I think that, you know, no matter what you train in, what problem you're trying to solve, I think that what happens is, for you to truly stay out of a conditioned white. And of course, I'll just refer back to what Dustin's talking about life factor moments. Life factor moments, by our definition of them, are moments where it is almost impossible to split focus. There's just moments in life where all of our attention is put into some oftentimes mundane task. You know, the focus and coordination, you know, just these things can happen in fractions of seconds. You know, studying road rage, when individuals get in their car and they go to, you know, put the buckle into the receiver for the seatbelt, often even subconsciously, their focus is distracted for a second. There's just a myriad of different moments where people have kind of letdowns, just natural letdowns, which is part of human nature. It's human psychology. There's no way to be on 24/7 every second of every day, every minute of every week, all that type of stuff. So life factor moments occur. Now,
the biggest life factor moment right here.
Yeah. And that's, you know, exactly. A phone has become a life factor moment. Now, these situations like a phone, they don't have to be life factor. They could be mitigated, right? Because again, but that is absolutely it. I mean, we just are so viscerally conditioned that it used to be like back in the day when the phone rang, everybody answered it. It was like the manners. The phone rang, people answered it. You know, someone rang your doorbell, you opened the door. Nowadays, the phone rings and very few people will answer it because they're like, they don't want to have a conversation, just send a text. The doorbell rings, you're not expecting anybody, almost nobody answers it because it's just going to be a salesperson or something. So, I mean, like, these life factor moments have always existed. What I think is interesting about the conditioned white and how you get out of that is a true rationalization and acceptance has to have occurred. And this is always going to be the first thing. And so we talk about this quite frequently. But what is it? What do I mean when I say rationalization and acceptance? You can train in a lot of different studies. You can train firearms, you can train martial arts, you can train combative sports, you can even be, you know, training in the weaponization process, you know, purely for violence and the ability to protect against violence. But the reality is that you can do all of this work and not have ever truly rationalized and accepted the problem that you know, as real. And it's like, you got to think about it. Conditioned white is when you are unready and unprepared, meaning you do not have a threat-based perception of the world. That means that you have to examine what somebody's core belief is. And it comes right down to I can separate this very easily. There are the people that absolutely believe with 100% certainty that they are going to use the mindset, the skill sets, the knowledge, the tactics, the strategies, the tools that they're training. It's like they're absolutely certain about it. Just like they're certain about, like, that in the next second they're going to continue to take oxygen to live. You know, they're going to breathe. Like, it's just like, yeah, if I stop breathing, I'm dead. Like, there's no doubt about this. And it's like there's people that genuinely, just wholeheartedly believe that they will face violence. And if you have the people that believe that, that's a rationalization and acceptance. You can't get around that. If you believe that listen, let me just finish the other side of that. There are the people that hope that go, well, most likely I'll never have to use this stuff. I hope I never have to use this stuff. Listen, there's certain things that go without saying. When we're training for violence, and every single person that comes to us, it's already it's understood that we don't want to have to do this. But the reality of the world is that I'm going to need to do this. I'm going to need to protect my family. I'm going to need to protect myself. I'm going to have to stand up for my rights, my safety, my freedom, my liberty. That is just the way the fucking world is right now. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And so I have zero doubt. There is no uncertainty in me that I will need to use these skill sets, every aspect of them, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And there are people that they rest on, well, I'll do it, but I hope I never have to. That hope is like a block to true rationalization and acceptance, which means you are always open to a conditioned white, right? So that is one of the first things that I think people need to understand, right? And so give me your feedback. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Again, we've talked about this before. Just by the sheer virtue of accepting the fact that violence is out there is brings people well ahead of the game, right? Because it's not living in denial, right? So I think it kind of goes, and for me, it goes hand in hand with that. Is like you have like the rationalization accepted process is what allows you to, set the other elements and even stack the rest of the color code elements on top of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, again, you got to own the problem.
Yeah.
Like, and let's just be really, let's put a real sharp point in this so people don't miss this. How do you know you own the problem? Listen, it's natural, it's human nature to have hope. Nobody wants to have to find themselves in a life and death situation protecting their family where you might have to take life to preserve life. Very, very, very few emotionally, mentally healthy people want this, right? Which means that we all have the hope that we'll never have to use this type of skill set. Okay, so like I said, that goes without saying. But true rationalization and acceptance, the survivable value falls on the other side. Like you cannot help but find yourself on the other side going, but the reality is, as much as I hope I never have to do this shit, I'm gonna have to do this shit. In some way, shape, or form. Now listen, there's levels to this stuff, but none of that fucking matters. Listen, like the whole base level of any type of personal protection is taking life to preserve life. That's it. That's the worst thing you'd ever have to do. That is the most challenging thing you'll ever have to do. That is the worst type of situation. You literally have to take someone's life to preserve life. What's worse than that? Well, nothing. If you can find yourself in a violent life and death situation, remember, legally and morally, you believe it is reasonable for you to assume you're facing imminent grievous bodily harm or death, and you have to be willing to take life to preserve life. Well, if you don't end up having to take that life, and yet you've preserved your life, great, good, perfect. I don't give a fuck. I'm not even going to say the word that's better. It just is what it fucking is. That's rationalization and acceptance. And so you really have to ask yourself, where are you in this? Because if you're not 100%, if you don't have 100% fucking certainty that you're going to need to use these skill sets, there is condition white still left in your life. Your life factor moments will be bigger. How many times do you guys leave the house without your tools, your tack light, your combat medicine stuff, your knives, your tools? How often do you guys leave the house without your tools?
Very rarely.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
And
If you
sorry, if I do be like, oh shit, turn around, I go get it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The answer is kind of never, because you just go back. You have to go back.
No, the answer is not kind of never. What's the answer?
Never.
It's never.
Never. Yeah. Why dumb it down? If you drive, I've driven. I know we've all done this. Everyone forgets. That's human nature. You forget.
Exactly.
I've driven fucking. You've been 20 minutes away from the house, and you turn around and drive right fucking back and get that shit, or I stop off and pick up something different. You know what I mean? It's like It's never. The answer's never, and I don't forget. I don't walk out going, oh geez, I forgot my tools today. I don't ever. That's like going, I forgot my car keys today. How the fuck did you get where you're going? I don't take the bus. I drive. I can honestly say I got my license the day I bought a car when I was 15. I've got my license the day I turned 16. And I don't think I've ever taken a fucking public transportation system, other than maybe if you're somewhere on vacation traveling and stuff like that. I drive every day of my life and never once forgotten my keys. Not once since I was 16 and I just turned 53. That's an impressive record. How do I do that? Because you need your fucking keys to drive. You don't ever get very far. Well, I need my tools because I live the lifestyle of a protector. I have rationalized and accepted that there are people in this world, and if you give them half a chance, they will fucking hurt you. They can destroy everything you love. And I love the people in my life. It is my job, my responsibility to protect my family. That is one of my deepest core beliefs. Provide and protect. That's what it is to be a man by my definition. So I don't forget my shit. Not ever. And here's the other thing. You want to know if you've got rationalization and acceptance? You're training. If you genuinely believe you're going to need the skill sets to protect your family, you're not waiting, you're training. I don't see any other way around that. Everything in between that is just an excuse. because you're going to, like, who would do that? You're going to need these life-saving skill sets. You believe, you know that, right? Yes, 100%, I know that. Well, here's the training, go get it. No, not now, later. When later? When things are better, when things are quieter, when things are easier. Well, it doesn't really work that way. It's like, that's denial. That's denial of time. You don't have a crystal ball. It could be tonight, it could be tomorrow. I mean, every guy that starts training with us right now, I say the same thing to him. The best time to start this process was 20 fucking years ago. You know, a fucking month ago would have been better. But the second best time is when? Fucking today, right now. Do it. Period. Done. That's action. The people that genuinely believe that they're going to need these skill sets take action. Because who wouldn't? You don't open the door and see a fucking volcano erupts, you see lava heading towards your house. You don't shut the door, go back and sit in your fucking lazy boy, go, well, I'll pack some shit up and clear out, but I probably got a few minutes here still. I better finish my tea here. It's like, no, you don't fucking do that. If you have a genuine belief. So to me, that's what staves off condition white, is a true rationalization and acceptance. And how do you know when someone's made a true decision?
Look at their actions.
Exactly. They take action. That's how you know a true decision. It's always followed by an action. Always. There's zero exception to that. Okay, so now we go to condition yellow. Somebody's rationalized and accepted. Okay, so now they have a condition yellow. They have a threat-based perception of the world. They have an absolute certainty that they're going to need these skill sets at some point in some way, shape, or form. So now they're moving to condition yellow. Well, how do you actually live in condition yellow? There's so many people I meet that claim to live in condition yellow simply because they go, well, yeah, there's threats in this world. I know. I mean, let me tell you a story about this one time I had this happen with this guy and this happened with this guy. Everybody's quick to want to tell you their story. And that, as if like that's proof that they live in condition yellow. But how do you actually live in condition yellow? How do you actually attain condition yellow?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like, you know, how much time are you putting in to truly study it, to study the problem? You know, you talked about owning the actual problem and understanding the problem. And it's like, well, how do you do that? We got to study it. You have to understand it in an intimate level, because if you don't, then you're just kidding yourself. Kind of like you said, just knowing something exists, that's not enough. Like, you have to know it inside out better than you know anything else.
Yeah, 100%. For me, if I throw this in, it's just exactly what you said. For us, we break it down into understanding the blueprints. The bad guy blueprints for us is a synonym for what Dustin just said, which is study criminality. You have to study criminality. I mean, I know so many more people that invest their time into watching mixed martial arts, like watching UFCs and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, I enjoy movies. I have friends that are professional fighters. I enjoy watching them fight. But I don't think for even half a second that is me studying criminality or me studying violence. Combat sports, like, I could study hockey and say, well, there's fighting in hockey, and basically that's the same as violence. That has nothing to do with violence. You know, you have to study criminality. The bad guy blueprints, you know, all violent assaults can fall into one of 4 different categories. Most people don't even understand that. Most people have never spent any time studying the true, like, court cases involving violence and studied the outcome, and they don't understand case law in Canada, and yet everyone's so quick to talk about the laws as it pertains to defend ourselves in Canada and how pathetic they are in this, but they can't cite a single case law. They don't go in and study the transcripts. They don't read court cases. They don't actually understand the rulings from the lowest court to the Supreme Court in Canada, where they're looking at and saying, well, listen, how did the courts actually rule? And they don't know. And so if you don't know, then you don't really have a threat-based perception of the world. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I remember, you know, probably grade 1, even a little bit in kindergarten, but, you know, for me, it might have even been grade 2 because I'm slower than most kids. But I remember actually learning how to read a little bit, you know, like Dick and Jane, you know, see, spot, run. But I would never have, you know, been given a PhD. You know, I could never have written a book or written a thesis on anything. My point is that talking about a fight here or there or something like that is fucking ridiculous if you're trying to make the comparison that that's your study of violence. I've been training martial arts for 30. You've been training combative sport. You've been studying and training jiu-jitsu. And yes, you know thousands and thousands of different techniques. None of that has anything to do with the study of criminality. So this kind of circles back a little bit to Brad's point about like, and you know, this is the way we would say it, but context determines content. What are you studying matters. So condition yellow is that means you are relaxed and you are alert. Well, what does that mean? That means that like if something pops in the radar, you've built the filter, the reticular activator. But what pops something on the radar? I mean, it's like if you take the analogy of a drug dog, and that drug dog is you know, they call in the canine to search a vehicle or to search luggage at an airport, and that dog is running around everything sniffing, and all of a sudden the dog sits. The dog hit on something. The dog's nose has been trained to pick up certain scents. You could have a cadaver dog, you can have drug dogs, you can have all kinds of different dogs that are trained. You can have rescue dogs. They're all trained to hit on different senses. I mean, literally, their noses, their filters have been hit to, you know, or been trained to hit on very specific things. Well, that's a condition yellow, isn't it? Because if you have an amazing guard dog and you take that dog to the park, the dog is just a fucking dog. The dog is very relaxed. The dog is playful. Its tail is wagging. Its ears are back. Its tongue is out. But that dog, if that dog senses a threat, so it means again with what? Within the scope of its training. That dog, if it's not a drug dog, isn't going to have an alert if it smells cocaine in the air. Or marijuana, or a cadaver. Like maybe it'll change its behavior slightly, but you get the analogy. But the second that there is a threat within its blueprints, right? Then it's gonna hit on that, and it's gonna go from a very relaxed, aware state, but there is no threat, and then all of a sudden it's gonna cue on that, and guess what? It automatically does. It automatically pushes him to what? Condition orange. Automatically. That's the power of the filter, is that you have to actually be studying criminality. I see, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I get, you know, the first session I do with people out of the first 16, the weaponized 16, is always the lecture, and it is my crash course on criminality. I give them 20, you know, I have 30 plus years of experience of studying criminality, and I give them the core essential things they need to understand in 90 minutes. And it's like, is there more to learn? Of course there is. But what are the fundamentals you need to know? That's the power of having done this for 30 years, is that you can render and distill things down to bite-sized pieces for people that have no experience, and you can get them up to a very high level very quickly. And so the second we do this, though, here's the point. Most people, because they hear it and it's been so rendered down, I mean, it's just being delivered to them in like a fucking bite-sized pieces. Like stick 6 Oreo cookies in your mouth and try to chew and swallow them as fast as you fucking can. Or take 6 of those little bite-sized Oreos and shove those in your mouth. Fuck, I can put 20 of those things in my mouth and chew and swallow them in fractions of seconds. That's how we're rendering and distilling information down for people. And here is the problem with that. The problem with that is that when things are so easy to understand, almost oversimplified for people, they attach no value to that. They just shake their head going, yeah, it all makes sense. Yeah, I know it all makes sense. But it's making sense isn't the end objective. That's part of the objective. That's the first piece, is for it to make sense. The second piece is to implement this shit. Is to see it, to study it, to review it over and over again, to build the fucking filter. I mean, yeah, you have a dog, you have a canine that comes with an insane sense of smell. So shove some cocaine in the dog's nose a couple times, go, you smell that? Go look for that. It doesn't work that way. Like there's a process that has to be worked to where, so that dog becomes educated and refined. So that it'll hit on even the slightest trace of that thing. And so this becomes the condition yellow, is the study of criminality, the bad guy blueprints, the sequencing of violence. Again, every single day we read indicators in other human beings. We read the body language, the behavior patterns, the communication patterns in other human beings. And most people are very, very good at it because as human beings, we have to be good at it. But you have to take that and put that into the framework of violence. There are the smallest little indicators from, the distance between the upper lip and the nose, the distance between the eyebrows, all of these different things, the tilt of the head position, the shift of the body weight, all of these things are indicators to tell you the intent to harm in another human being. And so as simple as all that is, and again, as we've rendered down, and there's this simplicity in our ability to teach people this stuff very quickly, it's simple, but it's not easy. Like, it takes time. It takes practice. And let's just circle back real quick. The people that actually fucking believe they're going to need to use the skill sets, that take fucking action because they believe they're going to need to use these skill sets, and not only their lives, but the lives of their families depend on the quality and the degree to which they own these skill sets, these people have a different work ethic. Hearing or listening is not absorbing. And very quickly, when something is fed to you in very manageable, consumable pieces, we all too often go, got it, next. Instead of recognizing there's somebody here that has been doing this far longer than I have, that has been in potentially far worse situations that I've faced so far in my life, and they are with emphasis sharing this knowledge, this process, this framework with me. I wonder why. Why do they put so much importance on this? And so this is where I want to circle back to why. Because anyone that trains with us, if they have condition white left in them, then mission failure, the probability of mission failure goes up. So for us, our whole goal is to eradicate condition white, which means what? We have to work the process until they can rationalize and truly accept this. And until they do that, there is no moving forward. I've said this before many times. You guys will have heard me say this over the years to many, many people. Who the fuck do you think you are to think you should be somewhere other than where you're fucking at? You have to work what is in fucking front of you before you can go to the next thing. Because if you don't work what's in front of you, the next thing is fucking useless. Everybody wants more. Everybody wants to move to the next thing. How about you just fucking do the thing that's in front of you? Like, there is a process to this, but you cannot graduate and move forward until you actually implement, absorb and fucking implement, not just learn, absorb and implement what the fuck is in front of you, at least to a base level. Like, which is a functional level, means that you could apply this shit. You know, I had a client say to me, he's 4 sessions in. 4. That's 4 hours. And he says, listen, everything we're doing up to this point has been great. But it's been a lot of strategy. I can't wait to start seeing more practical application of things. And it's like, you fucking idiot. The fucking strategy is what fucking solves everything. I mean, this is what I'm trying to get to. There is no rationalization and acceptance in a human being that makes that statement. Why? Because the strategy is the fucking mind preceding the body, meaning you have to understand what the fuck the problem is. You have to not just understand what the problem is, but strategies have to become fucking beliefs. The strategies is the fucking solution to the fucking problem. You will only do what you believe works and what you believe that you can make work. You cannot move forward until this shit becomes fucking real. It's the difference between actually training people that are gonna use this fucking shit, that really are gonna fucking pull the trigger and have to use this to protect their families. And that is really hard to get people to understand. I want you to live in the moment right now like somebody broke into your house last night and tried to murder your entire fucking family in front of your eyes. And by the grace of God, you survived. And now you know that they're coming back. 6 months, a year from now, 5 years from now, I have no idea when, but they're fucking coming back. And a man that goes, I will never live through those feelings again. I never want to experience that fucking terror. I never want to experience that sense of helplessness. I never want to feel that out of fucking control. That is a person that will fucking get what the fuck is going on. The mind's got to shift first. Your beliefs have to shift first. There is nothing more practical and functional than the fucking strategies. Like the true fucking acceptance of what the fuck is going on. There is no more practical. But everybody wants to separate the fucking physical. I swear to God, you could put people in a corner, put a stick in their hands, and have them bash tires for fucking 5 hours till their hands are bleeding with, blisters and blood, and they'd walk out thinking they're fucking Achilles. Just thinking that they're some sort of fucking killer. Physically that was hard. You know what's way harder than physical? Should I say it or do you guys want to say it? The fucking mental, the mindset is fucking infinitely fucking harder. You actually have to change who the fuck you are, how you see things, what you fucking believe. You want to go from being a potential victim or a victim mindset to a warrior mindset or protector mindset? That's all fucking belief. That's all fucking perception. That all comes to shaping the mindset. That comes from fucking studying things and opening new understandings. True rationalization and acceptance. Study the criminality. Go from condition white to condition yellow. Study fucking criminality. Deep dive the blueprints. Own that fucking shit. We watch videos of home invasions and road rages and fucking just random violent assaults of all different fucking types. And every time I watch it, I see myself in it. I see my family experiencing this shit. It's fucking hard to watch. I don't watch violence in any way, shape, or form on movies and in television and shit like that because I can't help but make it real in my mind because that's all I'm doing is studying and say, this shit actually happens. And this shit's being fucking glorified on fucking TV and being sensationalized in movies. And yet for me, it's too fucking real. It's like I literally won't fucking sleep for days on end. Because I've trained the filter that when I study it like it's fucking happening to me. And that's the way it should be. So when I want a break from this or when I'm living the rest of my life, I don't saturate with that bullshit. It's like, that there's no fucking way. Especially because most of the blueprints are all fucking bullshit anyhow. So it's like all it does is taint and skew your fucking perception. Right? So condition white to condition yellow to condition orange. So condition orange is what? You are now alert to a specific threat. So how do you know that you're alert to a specific threat? How do you know you're in condition orange? What is your guys' thoughts? How do you guys know when you're in condition orange?
For me, I think that... Go ahead.
Okay. It's just that something gets picked up on your radar. So again, coming back to the reticular activating system, the way it's been trained, what your filter's been set to, something hits. One of your sensory faculties picks up on some sort of a stimulus that tells you, oh, this potentially could be a threat.
Okay. How do you know when you're in condition orange, Brad?
For me, again, it's what my filter's set to, and then I would say that I'm assessing the level of that threat, right? Assessing and kind of determining, if there's action that I need to take, right? Maybe that could be like an egress action, whatever that is, but I'm like, what level? Here's a perceived threat because I've been in condition yellow. Now I'm assessing what level of threat is that, right? And for some reason, I'm seeing this threat far in the distance, and I'm seeing it kind of like in a parking lot as I'm talking right now. But it's like, okay, well, you see that. Well, what level of threat is that? Am I in danger of that threat? That could drastically change. And obviously, as we know, you could go through, yellow to red in a blink of an eye. But then it's like, well, if I was waiting in line at a hockey game, and this was someone right next to me, then you're still assessing, and it's like, well, you're in close proximity to this threat. May or may not be even directed towards you, but for me, it's that assessment and determining it is like, okay, well, what do I need to do about this? Do something because it is something, not before it becomes something. It already is something, right?
Yeah. Okay, I love that, and I think that that is absolutely the first part of condition or color orange, which is how we perceive the threat model is basically this. You first your sensory faculties are always pulling in information, so we're perceiving. You either see, hear, or feel a threat. Okay, you don't often smell a threat, and a threat isn't often touching you, although it could be, but it's often you see it, you hear it, or you feel it, meaning the messenger of intuition, something's cued you. Okay, so your sensory faculties pull it in. Then the next two levels, the first is this a threat? And so your brain is working through that model. Is this a threat? That is where your blueprints come in. That is where your condition yellow becomes useful. So that is this a threat and what level of threat? The blueprints and the sequencing of violence, reading the PIN index, the body language, the communication, the behavior, all of that stuff that is part of your condition yellow actually bleeds into the orange. So condition yellow, you're just relaxed and you're chilled out. You're the guard dog at the park. And then all of a sudden, there's an indication, something hits. See, feel, or hear. And all of a sudden, that moves you to condition orange because you start doing a deeper assessment. You start focusing in on what this potential threat is. Is this a threat? What level of threat? Now, I believe that orange is not just an assessment of is this a threat? What level of threat? But I would often refer to orange as also the early action stage. Because the early action, like literally condition yellow is you're relaxed, you're just doing whatever. And then all of a sudden something pings on your radar. And that's something that pings because we study the blueprints, study violence, and the PIN indicators. We're already doing the assessment of is this a threat? What level of threat? We're watching its development, we're tracking it, which has automatically pushed us into a little bit of orange. But the orange has a lot of bleed over into the red. Remember, red being the action stage. Why? Because I'm already taking early actions. One of the things that we're big on is if I perceive a threat, there's the potential that this is a threat, and what level of threat is low right now, but to be determined. It's fluid. Something that is very low or almost, it has the ingredients to potentially become a threat. So theoretically, you're saying, is this a threat? Maybe. What level of threat? I don't know yet. Okay? Well, in that moment, orange has to include early action. Because when you do certain things, you allow this to be revealed. Like, you change the timeline. Or you increase the odds of your action when it does come time to definitively move to condition red and go into action or be ready to act. You're already five steps into your strategies, tactics, and tools. You're 5 or 10 steps into the kill chain, right? So let me ask you guys a question. You're sitting in a restaurant, just a busy cafeteria. You got your family with you, whatever. And all of a sudden you're sitting there, you're having a relaxed meal. Everything is really good conversation, lots of people milling about. And then all of a sudden you just have this feeling, the little hairs in the back of your neck stand up. And so you grab your drink, you take a sip of your tea or coffee. And as you're doing that, you're kind of just doing a situational awareness. You're doing an observe and report. And all of a sudden you become aware of a certain energy in one part of the room. And it's nothing more than that. There's just an awareness of this energy. And so in that moment, where are you at right now? Are you in condition yellow? Are you in condition orange? Where are you at and what are you doing?
We also sometimes refer to this as scene one, right? Something has happened. This is the beginning of the event horizon.
Yes.
So in my opinion, you're in orange because you've already identified a threat, and that early action could be, depending on what the threat is. Obviously, we're just talking, but it's like could be just keeping an eye out, right? Mm-hmm. That early action could be leaving. It all depends on what that threat is, right? So, in my opinion, you're in orange. I believe that anytime after the fact that you've identified a threat, you've gone from yellow to orange. until that threat is no longer in proximity or it's progressed through the linear progression, right? So
See, what I would say is I would change to even just say a perceived threat, right?
right,
Because
yeah,
you're saying and what I get it. You're saying you already know there's a threat, but even if it's just a perceived threat,
that's right.
meaning that there is not enough indicators present yet. Like you talked about scene one, it is so early. I mean, it was literally just the energy in the room or of this person or this group of people just made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And yet, when you look over, there is really nothing body language, communication wise, or behaviorally that is strong enough for us to even really ping on the radar. It's just a feeling. It's a gut instinct. And our brain, of course, being this 200,000-year-old survival mechanism, right? It's not wired for happiness, it's wired for our survival. Your brain wants to go into the future to go, well, scene two could look like this, or scene, because you start coming up with a hypothesis, an estimated guess. And it is and only is a hypothesis if you have the fucking training of condition yellow, which means you've studied criminality, the blueprints, the sequencing of violence, because then you're actually making an educated guess, which is why we call this the education of a weaponized man. Okay, because the process is educating you. And so now all of a sudden, and this is that point, even off a perceived threat where there is nothing tangible to ping with yet, what you talked about, Brad, was you just might start keeping an eye. But here's the thing, let's be very specific. Would you, if required, would you adjust your chair even a half an inch to better be able to keep an eye on that situation? Yes or no? Okay.
Yeah,
would you adjust how you are sitting in that chair to accomplish the same end?
Of course.
Yeah,
Would you potentially get a top up on your hot tea or coffee that you're drinking? Would you potentially slide the fork on the table into your hand? Like, okay, the list could go on and on and on and on. The point that I want to get at is even at the earliest possibility of a threat, to me, condition orange is filled with early action. Because
I think too,
go ahead, Dustin.
just to interrupt you really quick, I think too, like, just to really hammer home for people and highlight, like, early action is mental too, right? Like, you guys are saying it, but like Brad said, it's like, well, maybe you keep an eye, because normally in that situation, like, if this perceived threat hasn't quite hit yet, how much focus are you giving to that corner of the room? Maybe 1%, because we like to scan. That's what we do. We talk to people. We're looking around as we're talking. Other people might think it as rude. For us, that's just normal, everyday, body language. That's how we communicate. That's how we do it. So you might get 1%, but now this thing comes up on the radar, very subtle. So, okay, so maybe now that corner of the room gets 5% or 15% or whatever you deem it necessary. But that's that small action, is just how much focus does that area get on top of all these small physical changes too, right? But there's mental stuff happening as well, right?
Of course, and I think the big thing is for people to define early actions. Like, would you change places with somebody else at the table, one of your kids or your spouse or something like that, or your buddies, whatever? Of course I would. Would you get up and excuse yourself and move to the washroom to get a different angle or to hear a different part of their conversation, all done discreetly and covertly? Of course. Like, I mean, I'm answering for me, but these are all things that I've done. These are all things that I will continue to do. And the reason is because this is the lifestyle that I've chosen to lead. And it's not paranoia for me. It's I want to know. I trust my intuition because I've been training it, because it is my radar. I didn't train and develop a radar to alert me to something just so that I can fucking ignore it. Right? That's silliness. You know what I mean? That's denial. And yet that's what happens to a lot of people. So hopefully by this stage in the game, what I want people to see is that these color codes of safety, anyone can say them, anyone can know them, and most people believe that they can cycle through them. But the reality is to truly get out of condition white and to develop condition yellow, to have that automatically bump you to condition orange with the definitive early actions that come with that. And then, of course, ultimately to push you in condition red, which is now action or ready to act. Those things are, to even do that, you have to understand the problem, and then you have to have the strategy, you have to have the countermeasures, you have to have the antidote to the problem, you have to have the medicine. And people don't understand how important it is to have procedure. Like these problems, like we call this a kill chain. A kill chain is our procedures. They're the procedures to solving very specific problems that you're going to face when it comes to violence. And that leaves very little room for fear. Your condition black, they can't, there's always healthy fear, realistic fear. That's not what you're trying to eradicate, nor will you ever. But there's unrealistic fears. There is, all kinds of different things that can lead you to condition black, but they can't both exist. They can't, when you have the mission demands and you have the mission commands, everything else is kept at bay. Because the human system is working a process. And when you work that process, the process works. I mean, if you really think about it, combat or preparing for violence, it has to be based on strategic processes and tactical processes, right? And why? Because they fucking work. And when you work that process, you just solve the problem in front of you, and then you solve the next problem and the next problem and the next problem. And at the end of the day, these seemingly unmanageable, larger than life, terrifying problems, you're just thin slicing your way through it. It breaks them into manageable pieces. And this is the color of safety. Gotta eradicate white. And then when you eradicate the white, you stave off the black. That's huge. And then you're really developing through your training the condition yellow, which automatically integrates you to orange, and orange into red. And you can just slide up and down based off the mission demands. And I just wanted people to see, hopefully, it from a different angle, to the depths of the work. The whole time that you're training, all of this has to be integrated into this training. You don't get this by training one-dimensionally. You don't just develop better, badass physical skill sets, and now all of a sudden you have, there's no condition white for me, and my yellow and my orange are rock solid and red. Like, I know so many people that train for red. They just train for the fight. But violence demands so much more than just the fight. If you just, all of your training is set for the action stage, you're always going to find yourself in a really, really tough situations. I mean, Colonel Cooper, who came up with the color code system, also had a very cool quote that I love. And he said that if you find yourself in a fair fight, your strategies suck. And it's like, I believe he actually said, your tactics suck. But this is kind of what we're talking about. If you're just, all your training is for red, and you think, oh yeah, I know what's going on. What's the term now? I'm awake. I'm awake. I know what's going on here. And yet you study no criminality. You're not training in strategies, tactics, and tools. You don't know the sequencing of violence. You just don't understand any of that stuff. You can train, or you can delude yourself into believing that, oh yeah, man, they come for me, they're fucked. You know what I mean? I may as well just keep stacking on the Colonel Cooper quotes. But this one's really good. And it's just, owning a firearm, or being willing to throw punches. But his quote was, owning a firearm doesn't make you armed any more than owning a guitar makes you a musician. Like, you know what I mean? I got an oven in my house, but I ain't no fucking baker. Like, this is the mindset where these color codes that are so quoted, but yet people don't have the work. They don't have the process that has surgically trained them to actually live them, to really own the colors of safety. You got to work hard to eradicate condition white out of your life. You got to work hard to truly have condition yellow's threat-based perception of the world. You got to work real hard and work that process to have the early action and the awareness for orange, and you got to work real fucking hard to have, the kill chain for condition red. And when you work the process works, and you become the color codes, the colors of safety. You don't just fucking know them, you are them. Because stimulus and fucking response. You're yellow to orange to red, yellow to fucking red, right? It's just you are stimulus response, stimulus response, stimulus response. And it is the whole person integrated development, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So, I don't know, any final thoughts on the colors of safety, guys?
Just one of the things that came in my mind is, and I very well know that we scratched the surface with the amount of depth of information that's within these. But it what's on the top of my head was terminology. And we know that terminology matters, and it's the meaning that you attach to some of these things. And I just really like the perspective of, like how simple just understanding what saying yellow means, right? When you have this understanding of like what your filter is, you learn this process of filtering out violence, and you understand the blueprints. You could be out living your life, and you could just be like, oh yeah, yellow, like, and then it gives you access to all this information that you had, and even orange, and even red, understanding what all this is. So again, I'm not too sure why that popped in my head, but I wanted to share it because, it's like we could attach this. And I think maybe one of the reasons why is because when we talk about conditioned yellow, a lot of people are like, oh, that's paranoia. It's like, it's not paranoia. We don't attach that meaning to being alert and aware of our surroundings and things like that, right? So, this is just obviously super, super valuable information. And it's important information, right?
Yeah, 100%. Dustin, final thoughts?
Yeah, my only last point is, you talked about the guys who train just for condition red, spend all their time training, for the fight. And, for me, it's just, again, with, Cooper's quote of, oh God, what was the quote you said now? Doesn't matter.
First one or
Point
second
is, I think it was the first one. Yeah, if you find yourself in a fair fight, your strategies suck, your tactics suck. That one. For me, it's like, well, how much risk do you want to take on? Do you know what I mean? Because in a violent assault, the only things I care about are the survival of my wife, my kids, and myself, because they need me. So how much risk am I willing to accept? As little as absolutely possible. And training just for the red, just for the action, even if you're phenomenal at it, you're accepting more risk. By bypassing yellow and orange, you're taking on risk. I'm not willing to do that. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
If someone says I can give you, X factor less risk by understanding and truly owning condition, yellow, condition orange, the ability to move up and down through those, yellow to orange, back to yellow, whatever. It's like 100% I would do that. All day long I'll do that.
Yeah.
I've spent the last 25 years trying to figure that out and take it to the next level. And we'll never stop. And why? Minimize risk. For me, that's all it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've said everything I want to say with it, with the exception maybe of just, it is just simply a process. And when you work the process, you have to put your ego aside. And that's kind of what I think you were both alluding to in your final thoughts, is that this is so valuable for people that, again, this is truly what you become. And you have to set your ego aside to truly have the condition yellow and the condition orange. Because at the end of the day, there's two options in this world when you're faced with imminent grievous bodily harm or death. That is to remove yourself from the situation. That is always our first and best option. And when you have a great condition yellow and a well-defined surgical condition orange, that becomes very, very probable that you remove yourself and your family before it ever gets to anything physical. And the only other option, if you cannot remove yourself, if you are devoid of choice, and remember, violence, asocial violence, they leave you devoid of choice. Violence never asks. So if you cannot remove yourself from the situation, you then must remove the situation, and you must do either option without prejudice. There just is what it is. That's all that needs to be said. It just is what it is. If I can get out of it and remove myself, I'll do it. And if I can't, well then what else is there to say? I can't. I'm devoid of choice. Then the only choice I have left is to remove that situation. And training to build out the colors of safety truly gives and keeps both those options open to you. Right? That's how you truly can say, like, that's how I know, like, listen, if there was any chance that I could have removed myself from the earliest possible moment to the latest possible moment, I would have taken it. Because that's true condition yellow, true condition orange. That's true condition red. Red can be getting yourself out of there. And yet, if it's not there, if it's not possible, devoid of choice, then the yellow and the orange increase the likelihood of your success 1,000-fold because you're taking preemptive action. Earlier you take decisive action, the more dramatically you'll impact the outcome of that event. Okay, so that is the power of the color of safety. All right, everyone. Okay, we'll end that here. Thanks again. Always, Dustin, Brad, appreciate you guys sharing your time and your knowledge with everybody. Appreciate everybody that watches and listens in each week. I know that we've been kind of hitting every second week here over the last little bit, but again, we're very busy training a whole new, just a whole new crew of men that are just, taking the responsibility. Men that are rationalizing and accepting that they know that it's fucking coming, that they need to be prepared, and that waiting, after's too fucking late, and they need to take action and they need to do it now, and they need to make this knowledge, this skill set a priority. And so we appreciate every single person that has joined our cause, that is supporting what we're doing, that is taking action. Our goal and our mission is to have a weaponized man in every fucking neighborhood. In every business, in every school, in everywhere, because it is our families, right? I'm raising my family in this city. My kids, as they grow older, are using the public transportation system. They are making their way and living their lives in these cities. And we need good men that are life-saving forces in dark, critical moments. And so that is the mission for us. This is not a fucking hobby. This is a mission. This is our passion. This is our purpose. And so we thank you for investing your time with us. And I hope that you are finding value in what we're saying and what we're doing and the information that we're sharing. So that is it. So again, thanks everybody. Hey, listen, until next time, stay safe, stay weaponized. We're going to chat again soon, everybody.